In the shimmering glow of old Hollywood, beauty was a currency, and those without it were often remade, reshaped, and reimagined by the ruthless hands of studios. But what happens when natural glamour is nothing more than artifice? Behind powder, wigs, and carefully staged photographs, some of the most celebrated women of the Golden Age were labeled ugly until Hollywood transformed them. Which illusions still haunt us today? Number 15. Bette Davis. When Of Human Bondage debuted in 1934, it wasn't the polished Bette Davis audiences would later know, it was the raw, unvarnished version. Davis, who had been dismissed early on by critics as plain, knew she didn't fit the traditional glamour standard. Her eyes were deemed too large, her jaw too sharp, her teeth slightly crooked. Yet Warner Brothers wasn't about to let her natural look define her future. In Of Human Bondage, Davis transformed into Mildred Rogers, a selfish waitress who toys with Leslie Howard's soul. The role was daring and dangerous, and she insisted on appearing with no makeup in the later stages of the film, allowing herself to look genuinely sick, almost grotesque. The performance shocked audiences and terrified Warner Brothers. Studio executives had whispered, "She's too ugly for stardom." But Davis knew that with artificial styling, she could play both ugly and alluring. Hollywood would simply dictate when. Behind the scenes, the studio forced Davis through constant makeovers, eyebrow plucking, new wigs, teeth whitening, endless powder. Some claimed Jack Warner himself ordered her eyes lit differently, so the public wouldn't call her frog-faced. And yet, that rawness became her signature. Audiences began to respect the artifice as part of her power. The aftermath? Davis became a legend, even winning 2 Oscars later. But the paradox haunted her. She was celebrated only once her supposed ugliness was camouflaged by the dye, tools of Hollywood illusion. Her story remains proof. Beauty in Golden Age Hollywood was as manufactured as the sets themselves. Number 14. Joan Crawford. By the time Grand Hotel arrived in 1932, Joan Crawford was already known in MGM hallways as the girl they had to fix off-camera. She was described as broad-shouldered, with freckles that made executives uneasy. Louis B. Mayer reportedly ordered her to endure painful beauty regimes, teeth capped, freckles sanded with acids, and endless makeup rehearsals until her ugly duckling look became acceptable glamour. In Grand Hotel, Crawford played Flem Chen, the ambitious stenographer entangled in romance with John Barrymore. On screen, she appeared sleek, her face glowing under the soft lights. But the transformation was anything but natural. Studio stylists sharpened her cheekbones with contouring powders decades before the term existed. Her famous brows, thin, arched, menacing, were the product of hours of plucking and repainting. Even her figure was altered. Costume designers crafted gowns that narrowed her waist unnaturally, forcing an illusion of elegance. The controversy bubbled off screen. Some MGM insiders whispered that Crawford had been considered too vulgar for leading roles. Critics, however, marveled at her magnetic beauty, not realizing it was the result of artificial reinvention. Behind the set, Crawford herself confided in friends that she felt manufactured. Yet she also admitted it was her armor against being cast aside. The legacy of Grand Hotel is undeniable. The film won Best Picture and cemented Crawford as a star, but not without the scars of transformation. Hollywood had taken a girl once mocked for her freckles and shoulders and built a goddess out of powder and lights. Crawford's triumph remains bittersweet. Her beauty was never hers alone. It was the invention of a machine desperate to sell illusions. Number 13. Katharine Hepburn. When Katharine Hepburn stormed onto the screen in Morning Glory, critics were divided. Some hailed her sharp presence as electric, while others whispered that she was simply too odd-looking for a leading lady. Her angular jaw, high cheekbones, and patrician features were called horse-faced by cruel studio gossip. Yet, with Hollywood's arsenal of artifice, Hepburn was reinvented as a goddess of style. In Morning Glory, Hepburn played Eva Lovelace, an aspiring actress whose hunger for stardom mirrors Hepburn's own. The irony wasn't lost on insiders. MGM had to artificially polish Hepburn to sell her to audiences. Makeup artists softened her harsh bone structure with powdered shading, while lighting experts invented entire setups to flatter her face. Camera angles were rehearsed endlessly, so her long neck appeared swan-like rather than awkward. Costumes cinched her frame into tailored elegance, erasing any hints of gawky stiffness. But the controversy behind the scenes was real. Hepburn had been rejected by some directors outright, branded as too ugly to photograph. The studio worried audiences would not accept her as a romantic heroine. She responded defiantly, refusing to cave completely to beauty conventions. Yet MGM insisted her freckles were powdered, her lips reshaped with liner, and wigs were placed strategically to cover her unruly hair. The performance silenced her doubters. Hepburn won her first Academy Award for Best Actress, proving that her supposed flaws could be reframed as sophistication. The legacy? She went on to be hailed as one of the greatest actresses of all time. But beneath the triumph was a truth. Even a woman of Hepburn's talent needed Hollywood's manufactured beauty to be fully embraced. Her story reveals how even icons were sculpted, not born, in Tinseltown. Number 12. Barbara Stanwyck. By the early 1930s, Barbara Stanwyck was on the rise, but she was no conventional screen beauty. Industry. Insiders described her features as too sharp, her nose too long, her mouth too hard. Warner Brothers nearly passed on her entirely. But with Babyface, Stanwyck's transformation from plain to powerful was cemented not by nature, but by Hollywood's carefully orchestrated illusion. Babyface told the story of Lily Powers, a woman who uses her ambition and wit to climb from poverty to wealth. On screen, Stanwyck radiated a dangerous allure, her eyes lined with smoky shadows, her lips painted into a siren's bow. But behind the camera, the process was painstaking. Studio stylists plucked her brows into pencil-thin arches, powdered her complexion to porcelain, and dressed her in gowns tailored to create curves she didn't naturally possess. Lighting technicians labored to frame her jawline in softness, banishing the angular harshness critics derided. Controversy erupted not only from the film's daring premise, but also from Stanwyck's makeover. Censors tried to suppress Babyface for its immoral story, yet insiders whispered that the bigger illusion was Stanwyck herself. Warner Brothers marketed her as a sex symbol, despite once labeling her ugly duckling in casting notes. For Stanwyck, the artifice became both a curse and a tool. Without it, she feared she'd never have been taken seriously. The aftermath of Babyface was explosive. The film was heavily censored, but later resurfaced in restored versions, hailed as a pre-code classic. Stanwyck's performance was unforgettable, but her legacy was also built on Hollywood's careful remolding of her image. She became one of the most versatile stars of the Golden Age, proving talent could shine, but only once the industry had beautified her. Number 11. Gloria Grahame. Gloria Grahame's career was built on playing dangerous women, but Hollywood insiders knew she was never considered a natural beauty. Studio memos described her nose as stubby, her lips too thin, and her features forgettable. Yet by the time she starred in The Big Heat in 1953, she had become a screen siren, crafted through layers of artifice and whispered reinventions. In The Big Heat, Grahame played Debbie Marsh, a gangster's mole who becomes tragically entangled in violence. On screen, she was radiant, her face framed in glossy waves, her mouth painted into a seductive pout. But it was no accident. Grahame was notorious for undergoing small artificial adjustments to her appearance, lip fillers long before they were commonplace, dental work to fix her smile, and wigs that disguised thinning hair. Some co-stars quietly remarked that her look was assembled, more studio trickery than nature. Behind the scenes, Grahame's insecurity was legendary. She reportedly stuffed tissue into her upper lip to make it appear fuller when the cameras rolled. Columbia's stylists refined her every angle with makeup designed to elongate her face. Yet rumors spread of constant disputes. Directors complained she was high maintenance, while gossip columnists hinted her obsession with beauty was masking her fragility. The controversy was compounded when the big heat itself shocked audiences with its violence, particularly the infamous coffee scene. But Grahame's performance became iconic, and her artificially enhanced appearance only added to her legend as a femme fatale. Still, the truth lingered. She had been forced to chase beauty, not own it, to keep her place in Hollywood. Her legacy is bittersweet. Celebrated as one of noir's unforgettable women, Grahame's story reflects how even haunting talent was forced into artificial molds of beauty. Hollywood demanded transformation, even at the cost of identity. Number 10. Judy Garland. By the time Judy Garland appeared in Meet Me in St. Louis, she was already beloved for her voice, but she had never been considered conventionally beautiful. Studio bosses at MGM were blunt. Garland was the ugly duckling of their young stars. Her round face, crooked teeth, and small stature left executives scrambling to reshape her into something marketable. Meet Me in St. Louis was supposed to present Garland as a romantic leading lady, not just the girl next door from The Wizard of Oz. To make that happen, MGM launched an aggressive transformation. Her teeth were capped, her nose slimmed with careful contouring makeup, and wigs softened her hairline. Costume designers constructed dresses to elongate her body, and cinematographers lit her face with glowing filters that blurred imperfections. Off-set, MGM's strict control extended to diet pills and harsh regimens designed to refine her image. The controversy was whispered loudly behind the curtain. Garland, barely in her 20s, was forced into endless cycles of pills, amphetamines for energy, barbiturates to sleep, all in the name of maintaining an artificial appearance. Some insiders argued her natural charm was enough, but the studio refused to take risks. Despite the pressure, Meet Me in St. Louis became a massive success, cementing Garland's status as a star. Yet, the triumph was bittersweet. The beauty audiences saw was carefully crafted by MGM's machine, not the unfiltered Judy herself. The legacy of her performance is haunting. She enchanted millions, but beneath the powder and pills was a young woman forced to fit Hollywood's idea of beauty. Even today, Garland's story stands as a cautionary tale of how illusion was manufactured at terrible personal cost. Number 9. Shelley Winters. When Shelley Winters appeared in A Place in the Sun, critics were stunned by her transformation. For years, Winters had been cast as the homely girl, too round-faced, too unglamorous for traditional star roles. Insiders remembered her studio notes describing her as plain and serviceable, hardly a glowing review for an aspiring actress. Yet with George Stevens's film, Winters was reimagined not by nature, but through Hollywood's arsenal of tricks. In the film, Winters played Alice Tripp, the factory worker whose tragic romance with Montgomery Clift leads to doom. On screen, she radiated vulnerability, her soft features illuminated with carefully manipulated lighting. Stylists bleached her hair into a paler shade, giving her a haloed glow, while makeup artists narrowed her face with contouring techniques. Costume designers dressed her in deliberately plain outfits, exaggerating her ordinary qualities, so her fragility would contrast against Elizabeth Taylor's glamour. Behind the scenes, Winters fought to keep the role. Paramount executives had wanted someone prettier, fearing audiences would not sympathize, but Winters won the part, and then endured countless image adjustments to make her plainness appear screen-worthy. She reportedly joked that her ugliness was her ticket, but the truth was more painful. Even to play ordinary, she had to be artificially crafted. The performance earned her critical acclaim, even an Academy Award nomination. Yet her reputation stuck. She was always seen as the character actress rather than the beauty queen. Her career would later blossom in gritty, powerful roles, but the shadow of Hollywood's obsession with manufactured beauty followed her. Winters's legacy in A Place in the Sun is poignant. She proved that talent could shine through, even when wrapped in artifice. But it remains a reminder of how much the industry distrusted authenticity. Number 8. Agnes Moorehead. Agnes Moorehead's performance in Citizen Kane is now celebrated as one of the most haunting portrayals of maternal coldness ever filmed. But in 1941, RKO didn't see her as a beauty. They saw her as a problem. With her sharp features, angular nose, and severe demeanor, Moorehead was considered far too plain for stardom. Orson Welles, however, insisted she could be remade into exactly what the screen demanded. In Citizen Kane, Moorehead played Mary Kane, the mother who signs away her son's future in exchange for security. Her appearance was deliberately sculpted for maximum effect. Makeup teams hollowed her cheeks with shading, giving her a ghostly presence. Her hair was styled into stiff, severe lines that exaggerated her severity. Lighting designers positioned shadows to harden her face, creating the impression of a woman already embalmed in sorrow. The transformation was less about glamour and more about engineering a striking visual mask. Behind the scenes, Moorehead reportedly bristled at the artificiality. She was a classically trained actress, more concerned with performance than looks. Yet RKO's memos were blunt. She was not photogenic. The studio tinkered with every angle, ensuring her presence served Welles's vision. Insiders whispered that Moorehead's resistance to constant image adjustments limited her career in later years. Hollywood simply didn't know how to market a woman who couldn't be molded into traditional glamour. The aftermath of Citizen Kane is legendary. Though the film was controversial and suppressed by Hearst's empire, Moorehead's role became a cornerstone of her legacy. But her beauty, or lack thereof, was never hers. It was another Hollywood invention, crafted through shadows, powder, and ruthless manipulation. Moorehead's story endures as a stark reminder. Even genius performances were packaged behind artificial facades, so audiences could accept what studios demanded. Number 7. Lucille Ball. Before she became America's beloved red-headed comedian, Lucille Ball was known inside RKO Studios as a problem face. Executives complained her nose was too long, her lips too thin, and her skin covered in freckles that cameras exaggerated under the harsh lights. By the time she appeared in Stage Door in 1937, the studio had already begun an aggressive campaign to repackage her as beautiful artificially. Stage Door was a sharp ensemble piece about aspiring actresses sharing a boarding house, and Ball was given a smaller part. Yet even in fleeting appearances, she looked transformed. Her freckles were buried beneath layers of pancake makeup, her lips reshaped into the fashionable bow of the era, and her hair bleached blonde to make her stand out among her co-stars. Off-screen, stylists forced her through painful beauty regimens, eyebrow thinning, teeth whitening, and chemical peels to lighten her complexion. Behind the scenes, Ball privately admitted she was insecure about her appearance. Insiders whispered she was desperate to prove she could be glamorous, not just comic relief. Studio photographers staged countless publicity shoots, framing her with soft filters and artificial shadows until her flaws were unrecognizable. Though Stage Door itself didn't make her a star, it cemented the illusion that would later allow Ball to succeed. Ironically, It wasn't until she embraced comedy with her bright orange hair and expressive face that she became iconic. Yet even then, the transformation haunted her. Friends recalled she often worried about looking ugly without the heavy makeup and lighting tricks. The legacy of Lucille Ball is one of genius timing and courage. But her story is also proof of Hollywood's hypocrisy. Even the funniest woman in television history was first forced into artificial beauty before the world was allowed to love her as she truly was. Number 6. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich is remembered as a timeless screen goddess. But the legend was manufactured. When Joseph von Sternberg cast her in Morocco in 1930, Paramount executives were unimpressed. They thought her face was too wide, her skin uneven, and her nose oddly shaped. Sternberg, however, saw potential if she could be reconstructed through lights, powder, and carefully engineered artifice. In Morocco, Dietrich became the exotic cabaret singer Amy Jolly, sparking scandal with her androgynous tuxedo-clad performance. On screen, she radiated mystery, her cheekbones sharp, her lips painted into a seductive pout. But this was no accident. Von Sternberg reportedly spent hours sculpting her face with lighting alone, placing her under shadows that thinned her cheeks and turned her into an icon of allure. Makeup artists plucked her brows into severe arches, powdered her nose to slim it, and shaded her eyelids to create the illusion of sultry depth. Behind the scenes, Dietrich's transformation was whispered about as one of the most extreme Hollywood had ever attempted. Sternberg instructed her never to be photographed outside his carefully arranged lights. He even demanded costume designers build outfits that exaggerated her torso while slimming her legs. The artificial construction of Dietrich's beauty was so meticulous that co-stars joked she looked like a wax figure until the lights hit her. The aftermath was seismic. Morocco made Dietrich an international sensation, and her manufactured image, mysterious, untouchable, erotic, became her calling card. Yet the truth was known only to insiders. Her beauty was engineered, a collaboration between director, makeup, and cinematography. Dietrich's legacy remains iconic, but it reveals a haunting truth. Even those remembered as the ultimate symbols of glamour were not born that way. They were created, piece by piece, until the world believed the illusion. Number 5. Jane Wyman. When Warner Brothers promoted Jane Wyman in Johnny Belinda, she was already facing the industry's cruelest whispers. Too plain, mousy, forgettable. Wyman's soft features and quiet demeanor made her fade against flashier contemporaries. But Hollywood had ways of manufacturing presence. For Johnny Belinda, in 1948, her transformation became a showcase of artificial beauty designed to elevate her into stardom. In the film, Wyman played Belinda McDonald, a deaf-mute woman struggling to be understood in a harsh world. It was a demanding role, stripped of dialogue, relying on pure expression. To prepare, Warner Brothers refined her image relentlessly. Makeup artists reshaped her face with heavy contouring, giving her delicate cheekbones she didn't naturally have. Wigs softened her hairline, while wardrobe designers tailored her outfits to suggest grace and femininity. On set, directors used filters that smoothed her skin and created a glow of innocence. The controversy was both on and off screen. Some insiders argued Wyman's performance should be allowed to stand without artificial enhancement. But the studio feared audiences would not embrace her otherwise. Rumors spread that Warner Brothers even reshot close-ups until they found the angles that manufactured elegance. Critics, unaware of the manipulation, praised her as radiant. The gamble paid off. Wyman won the Academy Award for Best Actress, cementing her as a star. Yet, behind the golden statuette was the reality. Her beauty had been engineered to make audiences believe. For Wyman, it was both a triumph and a trap. Her career depended on maintaining an image that wasn't entirely her own. Her story reminds us that in Golden Age Hollywood, even plainness had to be made beautiful to be marketable. Wyman's triumph was built on talent, but framed by illusion. DeMille cast Claudette Colbert in Cleopatra in 1934. Paramount wasn't convinced she could embody the sultry Queen of the Nile. Off-screen, Colbert was considered attractive in a girl-next-door sense, but not the exotic goddess Hollywood demanded. Her slightly round face, short stature, and modest features were seen as liabilities. DeMille's solution? Transform her into beauty by sheer artifice. The result was dazzling. Colbert's Cleopatra appeared regal, mysterious and intoxicating. But every inch of that look was manufactured. Her costumes were tailored to elongate her body, while strategically cut gowns emphasized curves she didn't naturally possess. Makeup teams shaded her nose, plucked her brows into severe arches, and painted dramatic eyeliner to mimic the ancient Egyptian aesthetic. DeMille himself oversaw the lighting, placing Colbert in shimmering glows that disguised her round face and turned her into a living statue of seduction. Behind the scenes, the transformation sparked gossip. Paramount's executives complained about the resources poured into making her beautiful. One insider quipped, "It takes a kingdom to make a queen." Yet audiences were enchanted, unaware of the cosmetic tricks. The film became a hit, earning Colbert an Academy Award nomination that year, though she would ultimately win for It Happened One Night instead. The legacy of Colbert's Cleopatra is striking. She remains etched into cinematic history as one of Hollywood's great queens. But the reality was that her allure came from layers of fabrication powder, paint, costumes, and shadows. The film itself is a testament to how far Hollywood would go to manufacture beauty, proving that even queens were crowned with artifice. Number 3. Katharine Cornell. Katharine Cornell was hailed as one of the greatest stage actresses of her generation. But when she appeared in Hollywood's wartime ensemble Stage Door Canteen in 1943, studio executives faced a dilemma. Cornell's talent was undeniable, but insiders whispered she wasn't photogenic. Her features were considered plain, her face too severe, her presence lacking the softness audiences expected of a film star. The solution? Hollywood's cosmetic machine went into overdrive. Makeup artists reshaped her face with shading to soften her angular features. Her hair was meticulously styled into flowing curls that disguised her natural austerity. Cinematographers bathed her in soft filters, erasing lines and blurring harshness until she appeared luminous. Wardrobe designers tailored her dresses to highlight elegance rather than severity, creating a new illusion of beauty for the screen. Behind the scenes, Cornell bristled at the transformation. Known for her integrity on the stage, she hated the idea of being remade. Yet RKO feared audiences wouldn't embrace her otherwise. Studio photographers produced dozens of glamour shots, carefully staged so she looked radiant. Insiders later admitted the entire campaign was about selling an illusion, not Cornell herself. The irony? Audiences loved her performance, and critics praised her luminous appearance. What they didn't realize was how carefully crafted it had been. Cornell's Hollywood stint was brief, and she quickly returned to the stage, where talent mattered more than beauty. But her film appearance stands as a reminder. Even the greatest talents were forced to endure Hollywood's artificial beauty machine. Her legacy remains intact as a stage legend, but her brief film career shows how even icons were reshaped for the screen's shallow demands. Number 2. Lauren Bacall. Lauren Bacall is remembered as one of the great femme fatales, but her beauty was not considered natural in the beginning. When Howard Hawks discovered her, she was a 19-year-old model, described as awkward and plain. Her jaw was too long, her eyebrows unruly, and her voice unfeminine. Hawks's wife reportedly pushed for her transformation, turning the girl next door into a Hollywood siren. Into Have and Have Not, Bacall stunned audiences as Slim Browning, smoldering opposite Humphrey Bogart. Her famous look, chin down, eyes up, was not natural. It was a trick invented to disguise nerves and soften her jawline. Studio stylists reshaped her eyebrows into bold arches, painted her lips with severe precision, and curled her hair into a glossy wave that reframed her entire face. Hawks even coached her voice, encouraging her to lower it into a sultry register that became her trademark. The behind-the-scenes makeover was intense. Bacall, shy and insecure, was molded daily by makeup teams and lighting crews. Hawks reportedly ordered cinematographers to photograph her only from specific angles that made her appear taller and slimmer. Rumors spread that Hawks treated her less like an actress and more like a project, an experiment in manufacturing allure. The result was iconic. Bacall became a sensation, and her chemistry with Bogart sparked a legendary Hollywood romance. Yet, the transformation haunted her. Friends recalled she always worried about losing the image Hawks created. Was she truly beautiful, or just a studio invention? Bacall's legacy is undeniable. Sophisticated, sultry, unforgettable. But her story underscores Hollywood's artifice. Even a woman remembered as one of cinema's most striking beauties began as an ugly duckling until the machine decided to crown her otherwise. Number 1. Norma Shearer. Norma Shearer's transformation is perhaps the most dramatic of all. When she arrived in Hollywood, she was dismissed outright by casting directors. She had crossed eyes, a slightly pug nose, and a face described as plain. MGM executives declared her unsuitable for glamour roles. But Shearer was married to Irving Thalberg, MGM's boy wonder, and she refused to be dismissed. Her transformation was relentless. Thalberg arranged for surgery to correct her crossed eyes, while studio stylists reinvented her appearance. Her hair was dyed, her teeth fixed, her jawline contoured with heavy makeup. Photographers were instructed to shoot her only under specific lighting, often with filters to blur imperfections. Publicity campaigns presented her as the First Lady of MGM, though insiders admitted the image was a careful illusion. In Marie Antoinette in 1938, Shearer's transformation reached its peak. On screen, she appeared as the doomed queen, draped in elaborate gowns and jewels. Audiences gasped at her beauty, but what they saw was the culmination of years of artifice makeup to elongate her nose, costumes to exaggerate her figure, and lighting to create an ethereal glow. Critics hailed her as radiant, unaware that her image had been engineered. Behind the scenes, whispers persisted. Some resented her success, claiming she was proof of what money and influence could buy. Others admired her determination. She had remade herself from an ugly duckling into Hollywood royalty. The aftermath was bittersweet. Marie Antoinette was one of her last great triumphs before Thalberg's death and her own retirement. But Shearer's legacy remains a symbol of Golden Age illusion. She wasn't born Hollywood's queen. She was created, sculpted, and polished until the world believed the lie. Her story is the ultimate testament to old Hollywood's machine. Beauty wasn't discovered. It was manufactured. Hollywood's golden age promised beauty, but so much of it was smoke and mirrors. These actresses, once dismissed as plain or even ugly, were refashioned until audiences worshipped their illusions. But what does it say about an industry that demanded masks rather than truth? Were these women victims of artifice or masters of it? Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.